area right now to keep them all busy, and they like it that way. Maybe one of the reasons is because of those parties down the street and because everyone is just kind of hanging out, waiting for the lights to come on. We've been showing you all the adults all night and what they're doing, but we always forget about the kids, don't we? Chris, what have you been doing for fun tonight?
We've been playing, sitting down. We've been having a lot of fun.
How long do you think you can go without the lights?
I don't know.
What about you? How long can you go, you think? Can you go another day?
I don't think it'll be because...
Right, patience runs out for everyone, I guess, but there's certainly... Let me see that football. Go long. I have to go play with the kids. We have to keep them busy because that keeps them quiet for the parents, and they like that too. Bill and Liz?
All right, Jeffrey. Always, oh, look at that. That's nice. What a good guy you are.
I don't have a good spiral, though.
That's all right. You don't need one out there right now, Jeffrey. Lauren Glassberg, jerry-rigging. You used the word gerrymandering last hour. I'm going to use the word jerry-rigging, Lauren. Some sort of, what do you have, a spotlight?
All right, here we go. This is what you're looking at now is a live picture of me without any lights. And
You're
this
in Syosset.
is the mother of all lights. This is amazing, and this is what people are using. You know, people have been running to the Home Depot and grabbing flashlights, buying candles, but this is really your safest bet to have this enormous flashlight. I'm going to give you a little walking tour now of Syosset. We're at the corner, the intersection of Jericho Turnpike and South Oyster Bay Road. And take a look. It's just still. These are the, obviously the electric lines that aren't doing us much good right now. This is the intersection. You know, even at 12:30, 12:45 at night, this intersection is usually very busy. Right now, a couple of cars, and hopefully they proceed with caution because it can get really dangerous. Now, let me swing you over to this end. This is a commercial area. Here, ironically, two stores we're going to show you with perishable goods. 1-800-Flowers.com. Not sure how the flowers are going to hold up without refrigeration. And then swing it over a little more, and we are at the Carvel. Now, earlier, the owner of this Carvel said he pretty much knows that all the ice cream in here will be a total loss because the freezers aren't working here. He does have a generator at another of his locations, which has some power as well as his additional generator. And that's the feeling here in Long Island. It's a little bit of jealousy. Some communities have power and others do not, but by and large, most do not. But we were in Comac earlier tonight. They had some power there, although not all of Comac, so it's still touch and go. And get one of these if you don't already have one. Bill and Liz?
12:43 in the morning, Lauren. Where did you get that again?
Well, actually, one of my colleagues, Bob Dyke, carries one with him in his car, which is very convenient.
Smart.
I pilfered it from him, yes.
Well, he's a former police officer, so he's always prepared.
Always prepared. But, you know, hardware stores carry these, and there probably is a bit of a run on these lights, and I see this one's dying already. So you got to charge them, and the best way to do that, if you don't have a generator, is in your car.
There you go.
Okay. Lauren, it looks pretty quiet out there at this hour. Is that true?
Oh, yeah. Very quiet. But, you know, this is a really busy intersection, and again, you only see a couple of cars every now and then. Typically, even close to 1 in the morning, you're going to see a lot more traffic. But people are staying home tonight. That's really the safest thing to do.
Yeah, I think they're going to stay home tomorrow as well, Lauren, is our sense. They do not want to go through. If they can't get in, very easily, they're not going to want to risk that, I believe.
Yeah, and you know what? The railroads. I mean, they're simply not running, and you can't get into Manhattan unless you have a car. But you don't want to get into Manhattan. It's just not worth doing it.
Enjoy the breeze out in Syosset tomorrow. Lauren Glassberg out in Syosset, jerry-rigging a light for herself. It is 12:44 at 4:06 today. The entire Northeast, or much of it anyway, 50 million Americans from Ohio eastward up to Canada without electricity. Just like that, 1 out of every 5 Americans, including many of the people here in the tri-state area.
Without power. I want to give you an update on some of the airports. We understand LaGuardia, Newark, and JFK, we believe, are open. However, all flights at this hour have been canceled because at this point, since there is no electricity, passenger screening machines are not working. So all flights have been canceled. Planes en route have been allowed to land. However, no flights are taking off. Obviously, if you are planning on traveling not only later on today, but probably over the next few days, you should probably call your airline to find out the status of your flight.
Can I ask you a question, Jack, in the booth? Is that a live picture we're looking at from Newscopter? It's not. Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay, a little light. But it's this eerie scene. It looked very light. I thought, is the sun rising already? It's a very eerie scene. Much of Manhattan. There's live Newscopter.
That's live Newscopter.
If we could,
right
and I'm going to ask just to get rid of the mat for 1 second, so we can just see the lower part of the screen, the city, or lower the camera if we could. Well, oh, John, did you want to show us stars? Can John hear us?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
John, can we see stars? Is what we're told earlier, right?
Let's see. If the thing with the helicopter is I can't really get the camera to tilt up that high.
Yeah, because it'll go on the
top
propeller.
of your screen, the moon and the stars.
There you go. Beautiful.
There we go.
All right, let's look at again at the grid.
in New York.
Because as John's been showing us along with Shannon all night from Newscomper, 75% of New Jersey is back up and running. This according to PG&E, but much of Manhattan has no power at all. The Bronx getting some power back. So is parts of Brooklyn and Queens. But much of Manhattan still without power. And you just heard us get off the phone. We were interviewing the man from Con Ed. He just simply refused to make a prediction for fear of being wrong, I suspect, because they just don't know.
Wouldn't even gauge
When the power might be back up, and it could take several more hours.
Yes. Taking a look at some business news. ATMs in New York City. Citibank, JP Morgan Chase said that their automatic tellers, their ATM networks, have been shut down in the areas affected by the blackout. So no ATMs working right now. Also, Wall Street, a spokesman for the New York Stock Exchange, said the facility had lost no data from the power failure and that it would resume trading tomorrow, which is today actually, under emergency power if necessary. We believe that that comment came out when they were anticipating power coming on at 11 o'clock tonight.
Yeah, didn't happen.
It's now 12:46, and there's no definite time when this power will be turned back on. They said the blackout did hit just after the closing bell at the New York Stock Exchange, complicating some overnight electronic paperwork that sorts out all the billions of dollars and millions of shares that changed hands over yesterday. So a lot to do once the electricity comes back on in that section.
Out to Long Island, LIPA has restored about 150,000 of its 1.2 million customers. Of those, though, about 40,000 were in Queens or Western Nassau, about 12,000 in Eastern Nassau, and about 31,000 in Western Suffolk. 62,500 were in Eastern Suffolk. So the sporadic power, and as Lauren and Anthony have been saying all night, there have been power comes on, that goes off. The governor earlier today talking about this and saying this was a way for not everyone to just come up at once, and for some people not to have any power, that you have these slow rolling blackouts where you get power for a while and then you lose power. It has not been the case here in Manhattan. There is absolutely very little power here in Manhattan, and we don't know when it's going to come up. Con Ed saying they want to take things very slowly before they start ratcheting up the juice in all the grids, because they don't want to blow something until they've checked out all the power equipment.
And not only that, I think they're also saying that a big concern is the weather over the next couple of days. The system, once it does get started, will be very, very fragile. They're concerned about people, once power has been restored and they've laid off some of their appliances, to start using all those appliances, and everyone start using their appliances, the air conditioning all at once, and overloading very fragile system. So they are urging people over the next few days to be very wary, to be very careful about the amount of electricity used. And in fact, even saying, perhaps in jest, go to the beach tomorrow, go to the park tomorrow, do something that does not involve consuming energy.
Does that apply to us, Liz Jones?
I don't think it applies to us.
I don't think so either. Also people with the computers who did not save their work when this power outage happened will learn the great power of Control S on the keyboard and save your work, because when it does come up, some of your work will not be saved. John Journo, if you can hear me up there, do you have capability of speaking back?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
I got you.
Tell us about the traffic, because it just doesn't we see some ribbons of light, but it doesn't seem nearly what it was a few hours ago, John.
Yeah, the volume has certainly dropped off. As a matter of fact, I'm with Captain Paul now. We're going to swing over to the right. The biggest traffic delay I saw recently was inbound, Manhattan bound, on the 59th Street Bridge. Now, mind you, a lot of us we've been talking all afternoon about the big job it was to get out of Manhattan. But if you do a reverse commute out of Manhattan and you work in either New Jersey or out in the outer boroughs, you had a very difficult time getting back into the city today, because all the bridges were shut. The East River bridges were closed to inbound traffic. The Lincoln Tunnel was. Holland Tunnel was down to one lane. So maybe some people are slowly making their way back into the city now. Getting out of Manhattan was a slow process. For a while, getting into Manhattan was an impossible process. Now, while I've got you, because I'm already established.
Oh, you've got us, John.
Yeah, let's take a look into some of the outer boroughs here at how traffic is moving and the fact the lights are still out. This is Queens Boulevard headed away from the 59th Street Bridge out towards the BQE and Queens, and you can see, as Liz has been pointing out all night, the flashing lights up and down the road, mostly directing traffic, but you can see traffic is pretty light. Your main question is traffic beginning to drop off. Finally it is that the gridlock that we saw in Lower Manhattan is finally beginning to let up.
Well, it's a good thing that's finally starting to see some of the traffic easing up, just a little bit.
And one note, everybody's been saying to try and take tomorrow off. I would certainly expect that, being the summertime, people will turn this into a 3-day weekend.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think tomorrow's commute's going to be very, very light. But again, you know, we want to reiterate that that's coming straight from the mayor's office. If you don't have to come to work tomorrow, treat this like a snow day. Don't come into Manhattan. Mass transit is going to be spotty at best. Even the highways and whatnot. Captain Paul just drove in tonight from Long Island, made his way across the Bell Parkway. Traffic was very light, but it's interesting. Bill, you talked earlier about the cost of this whole blackout. Think of the simple things like the tolls. The Verrazano Bridge did not collect tolls at all tonight, just in the interest of trying to get traffic to move through. $8 a car, and that's been going on since 4 o'clock. They haven't collected a dime down there, and who knows what that's going to be like in the morning. Well,
I'm also wondering about these tolls. You know, they're not collecting the dime, but did they have the power for those machines to be working anyway?
You know what? When we flew out, the power, the auxiliary power at the toll plazas, that was on.
Of course.
Captain Paul, stick with me. Captain Paul's going to turn me around to the right. I'm going to show you the Triborough Bridge, and you will see that the bridge itself is not lit, but the plaza is lit. Let's keep coming around here. Again, it's kind of hard to find my way around in the dark. There you go. Center of your screen. That is the Triborough Bridge toll plaza. The plaza itself is lit up. The bridge itself is not. Traffic is moving through those toll gates without much of a problem at all. But again, you know, everywhere, Bill, traffic is, power is spotty. It's according to neighborhood. Manhattan and the 5 boroughs are still pretty much blanketed. Northern New Jersey is more of a neighborhood problem now. Yeah. There are specific neighborhoods that are without power. But most of the power there is back on. And again, literally the one bright spot in New York City tonight is this section of the Bronx that from here looks like it encompasses Parkchester, parts of Throgs Neck, parts of Soundview. That is lit up as well. And I heard Shannon mention before that the inmates at Rikers Island will spend the night in comfort because that is lit up as well.
And I suppose so people in the Bronx watching Channel 7, and I suspect many other people throughout Manhattan are not, or not watching any television at all, not doing much of anything. I'm surprised there's so many lights still on, actually. You'd think that almost 1 o'clock people would be going to sleep, but maybe they can't without all that air conditioning.
That's one of the best parts about this job is how beautiful it is at night, because all those are all amber street lights, but you can really see the stark contrast where all of a sudden it drops off. You lose power, roughly speaking now, west of the Sheridan Expressway. If you're east of the Sheridan, south of the Cross Bronx, you are one of our lucky viewers tonight. Yeah. Yeah, because you get to watch the broadcast.
And then all the way to the Hudson dark, and then the dark Hudson, and then it lights up again at New Jersey, right?
Yeah, we'll keep going left here. What you're looking at is Upper Manhattan and parts of the Bronx right around Yankee Stadium, and then those lighted areas that you see, that's getting into Fort Lee and Bergen County. From this angle, it illustrates pretty well what I was saying about specific neighborhoods being without power. You can see some dark spots in the middle of your screen. Those are neighborhoods that are still without power. They're spotty in New Jersey, but the vast majority appears at this point to have power and their lights back on.
Okay, John, how long can you stay up there?
We're good. We made a crew change. We topped off with fuel. We'll be with you until further notice.
Good to go, right. John Del Giorno.
You got it.
And at least your kid can see you this way, right? Or at least hear your voice.
Yeah, right.
All right,
John.
You can
stay in touch.
Thank you.
All right, joining us on the phone right now is Mike Dendecker. Mike, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, who's with the Office of Emergency Management. Can you hear me, Mike?
Yes, I can.
Hi, Mike. Can you go ahead and tell me what the latest is right now? I know we're at 12:54 in the morning. Any idea what is going to happen when the sun comes up?
No, but as you're just reporting that, we do have some partial restoration coming back, and what we really need to get out to the viewers is for them to check their households, and if they don't have electricity on at this time, and maybe they're watching you on a battery-operated television or radio, to turn off any appliances that might have been left on before the power went off. So as the restoration process starts and systematically works its way down, to the city and to the inner boroughs, that we don't put this extra load on that we could otherwise avoid.
What kind of appliances are you talking about? The refrigerator's going to go on. The clocks are going to go on.
No, but we assume that many people might have had their air conditioners on prior to the power going off, and rather than have that surge of all the air conditioners having to be restarted, it would be much easier for us if we could have people, before they go to sleep, turn off these unnecessary appliances. Of
course, there's no power to turn off anyway, right?
Well, that's actually just turning the switch off on the air conditioner unit itself.
And it's really the air conditioner you're talking about, Michael, right?
Air conditioner, any unnecessary lights that may have been left on. It might have been you had your kitchen light on, your bathroom light on, your hallway light on. So by shutting those switches down, when the power comes up, it won't immediately go into relight those areas that you won't need lit anyway, because you may not be up when the electricity does come back on.
Mike, one quick question regarding transportation. We know that once electricity comes back on, it's going to take New York Transit about 6 to 8 hours to get started. Any plans at this point to add additional bus service? Is that possible?
I'm sure MTA has made arrangements to do the best they can with the buses that they'll have. We right now have the George Washington Bridge, the Outer Bridge, Bayonne, and Gothel's open in both directions. The Holland has one lane open in each direction. Verrazano upper deck is open, both lanes in both directions, and the Queens Midtown and Battery Tunnels both have lanes open in both directions.
Mike, what do you do when you're not being the spokesman for the OAM?
Excuse me?
What do you do when you're not being spokesman for the OAM tonight? What's your normal job, or is that it?
I'm a public information officer.
Okay. I did, because we talked to someone from the OAM before who was with the building departments.
That was what happens when this an event like this happens. We put together a joint information center where we take public information officers from various city agencies and bring them in here, and so we have one voice and one uniform message coming out, because it's most important to give the correct information to the people.
Well, you guys have been very busy, but I want to talk about that message today, because earlier Mayor Bloomberg at his press conference at OAM said how well the emergency plan worked, that you had planned for this and things were going according to plan. A few minutes ago we talked to Dave Evans, who said that he ran into a lot of angry people who felt that the plan to evacuate the city, Manhattan especially, just was not up to speed, was not adequate, and they spent hours and hours waiting to get out of Manhattan.
Well, I think all in all, though, it was done safely and without any serious injuries or loss of life, which is the basic important issue and part of an evacuation plan. Speed is not necessary the importance unless there was some sort of life-threatening situation where people had to be evacuated in a quick amount of time.
Well, what would have happened then, Mike?
Well, things could be done differently.
How?
There are various evacuation plans in place. Depending on what type of event we'd be talking about, it would be event-specific. Depending on what type of event it was and where it took place would depend upon what type of evacuation plan would be put in place.
So heaven forbid, and I don't mean to beat this, but I think a lot of people thought about this today, heaven forbid it had been life-threatening. You're saying that you would have had more boats out there, more buses out there, more mass transportation alternatives for people to get out of Manhattan?
Well, taking into account what we're going through right now with a power outage, not necessarily, we might have not lost subway service in that type of event. Therefore, those amount of people would have been able to use the subway service to evacuate the area.
Fair point.
So this is a unique situation to have the entire city black out like this. And it's really not the city's fault. It's not Con Ed's fault. It's the power that comes from the northern grid that comes down to us. Con Ed's system shut down systematically like it's supposed to in the event that it doesn't have enough power to power up the city of New York. So by shutting down that way, it gives us the ability to turn it back on. It's actually a safety precaution, and that's why it's tripped that way. So actually, Con Ed's system worked exactly the way it's supposed to.
All right,
Mike Dendecker, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
We'll see. We'll talk to you tomorrow, I'm sure, Michael. As we heard from a hospital official earlier, hospitals in the area armed, most of them, all of them actually, with a backup power system. For most part, they were operating tonight, although surgical operations were limited to emergencies.
Yeah, so how did the medical systems respond? Well, Dr. Jay Adlersberg went out there, and he has this story for you.
Roosevelt Hospital is one of the busiest medical centers on the west side of Manhattan. Today's electrical blackout may have put a strain on much of the city, but as a major medical center, Roosevelt has trained for just such emergencies.
We're equipped, prepared, drilled for this. This is really kind of old hat to us, something at this scale.
Hospital officials say they can handle any emergency surgery that comes through the door. All life support equipment is still working, and they have enough generator fuel to power at least 2 elevators.
The fuel supply is around 48 hours, depending on how we're using it. We automatically start making arrangements for additional deliveries if it should be longer than that. But at some point, we would depend on the supply chain to get additional diesel fuel in here.
The hospital's electrical generators kicked in the moment that the lights dimmed this afternoon. There was only one patient in the operating room. It was at the end of the procedure, and doctors completed it without any problems. Just a trickle of patients was coming into the emergency room in the early evening, some with palpitations from walking down flights of stairs, some just anxious from the air of electricity surging through a powerless Manhattan. One group of anxious relatives is getting special attention.
In particular, we pay a lot of attention to our labor and delivery suite. We made sure that the expectant fathers can get up there. Even if we're at low elevator capacity, we made sure that group of 10 or 12 fathers got up there to experience this, because it's a once-in-a-lifetime.
This is Dr. Jay Adlersberg, ABC7 Eyewitness News.
And we are back to live pictures from Newscopter 7. John Del Giorno has been watching over the city tonight. Tim Fleischer and Sandra Bookman now joining you. We're going to bring you up to date on the latest of this power outage.
That's right. How many hours and counting now? All of this happened 4:06 this afternoon. The lights went out, and they have stayed out for most of the people. We've heard Bill and Liz say it over and over. 50 million people. Nearly one out of every 5 Americans has been affected by this blackout. Some 22 million people in our area alone affected.
Nina Pineda has been following the situation up in Washington Heights. And Nina, I know that you've run across some people up there who have been in need of some medical attention and just are finding it very difficult this evening.
Yeah, Tim and Sandra, it's really nice to hear your voice, our weekend crew. And Sandra, you had a beautiful piece on people enjoying what it's like to be in a blackout situation. But as Tim was saying, in this neighborhood, people do suffer from a high rate of asthma, and there has been a mom that's been coming to the truck because, as this gentleman found out, we are the only source of generator power in this neighborhood. He's kind of trying to get a charge on his cell phone. ¿Quién está llamando? ¿Quién está llamando? ¿Tu familia?
My family.
Yeah, he had walked up from work and said he couldn't get a charge on his phone, so he's here plugged into the truck to try to get a little bit of juice to let his family know he's okay. One very important word that we've learned in this neighborhood, it's hielo. That's ice in Spanish. That's been a very hot commodity, and someone just brought us out 2 glasses. We really haven't had anything to drink, any water. I know the mayor was saying in his press conference how people should try and stay hydrated. I guess that goes for those of us on the job here as well. This is going to be a big problem tomorrow. Kevin's going to swing around and show you this giant pile of garbage people were throwing out from the bodegas, from the restaurants here in Washington Heights. Piles and piles of food that was going bad. We've got ice cream containers out here, which were, as Sandra was saying in her piece, were just going like hotcakes. Some containers of water here. And of course, some people were throwing away meat products and other things that can spoil. So I can imagine here in the city tomorrow, they're going to have quite a situation with the garbage, because it has just been piling up on the streets. Sandra, Tim?
Yeah.
Okay. Sandra and Tim, can you hear me?
We certainly can. We're kind of getting some directions from both folks at this point. Nina, if I might, you have your IFB in?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great. We'll talk to you for just a moment. The garbage situation, certainly health officials are telling us at this point that anything past 4 hours is going to be somewhat suspect, and you've got to take a look at it. But you're saying people are already saying, okay, this is enough, and we're going to start tossing it now.
Yeah, that's right, Tim. And as you can see, it is piling up, and they did warn people to throw out the stuff that might be questionable. And, you know, when in doubt, throw it out. That's usually the mantra when it comes to health concerns about food. What people did in this neighborhood was to start giving food away. They gave away big slices of pork, and they gave away lots of ice cream because they knew it would just go to waste. And we'll swing around here and show you some of the security gates that went down. Right at about 4:10, we were here in this neighborhood because a minivan had gone into a store. And as soon as that happened, as soon as the power went out, everybody shut their gates that could. Some people had an electrical key that shut the security gates, and they weren't able to do that right away. So they kind of stood around. They stood by their register. They tried to send a message that this neighborhood was going to stand together and there wasn't going to be any chance at looting. And it is very quiet. I'm going to ask Kevin to go up the street here and just show you how dark it is. You can see some flashing lights. Here we're looking up St. Nicholas Avenue. There have been police patrolling. They've been in unmarked cars. They've been in vans. They have been on foot. And they have sent a message here that there won't be any looting as there was in years past when we've had a blackout situation. Washington Heights was really ravaged by some people taking advantage of that. We're not seeing that. We're seeing families camped out, kind of guarding their bodegas. There's lots of kids here on the street, and it's really too hot for them to be in their apartments. So they've chosen to come down and lay some blankets out and just make the night of it until they can get the power on, hopefully sometime tomorrow.
Jim Dolan had alluded to pretty much the same thing not too long ago in regards to the fact that police were receiving fewer calls tonight. So
that's exactly what we've seen. Nina pointed out we've seen exactly the same thing around the city here on the Upper West Side as well. In fact, many people said to us, and we've been outside in some of the neighborhoods this evening, that they were really pleasantly surprised by just how well behaved everyone was, how orderly things had gone throughout the day, how calmly New Yorkers had taken all this, kind of taken things in stride. And several people said that they were here, back in 1977, that last big blackout. Things were a whole lot different. This time around, they felt like New Yorkers have handled it well. But they also said to me, things are going great tonight. We don't want to be in the same situation tomorrow night at this time, though.
Exactly. And they're pushing hard. They're hoping that that they can put this grid back online again. Con Ed is saying that they want to take it slowly to make sure the equipment has not failed, and that it comes up properly and it doesn't cause any more problems, so that they can get it back up before tomorrow. Clearly.
John Del Giorno has been with us in Newscopter 7. He's high above it all. What do you got for us, John?
Well, Sandra, what we've got here really is our first emergency of the night. We are up in the Bronx, 246th Street and Broadway, where a fire is broken out in a 6-story apartment building. These are first live pictures here from Newscopter 7 as this situation develops. You can see flames out the 4th floor window. We have received some initial reports of injuries at the scene, but that's the best we can tell you right now, because obviously communications are limited. If you look closely in the center of your screen, you can see a fireman working his way up that ladder up to the top floor, and very clearly there in the center of your screen, flames at that 4th floor window. This is a second alarm fire, again at West 246th Street and Broadway in the Bronx. What is also interesting as we listen to the fire dispatch on this is that fire department units have responded here from Manhattan as well as the Bronx. So tonight, due to the power outage, they're not sticking to the boroughs. They're going to go with the closest fire engine, the quickest one available, anyway, to assist people in need. Meanwhile, we see some more fire engines pulling in here to the scene. This fire is not yet under control. Again, initial reports of some injuries here at the scene, and obviously we will bring you some more information as we get it, but a fire now burning out of control on Broadway in the Bronx.
John, clearly we don't know the cause of the fire, but one would certainly hope that it is not and was not caused by perhaps some auxiliary lighting, that people may have used some candles. Again, I think it bears reiterating that you should be extremely careful, especially if you have children in your home, if you have candles burning, that you put them in a proper container and make sure that they're safe and out of the reach and away from other flammable materials. Certainly no one wants to see anything like this happen.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but in the center of your screen again, if Captain Paul can us in a little bit closer, it looks to me like that might be a rescue happening in the center of your screen as the fire department goes into that window. It looks like they assisted somebody else onto that ladder. We're going to follow this video. Again, it's tough for us to tell from our altitude looking down into the dark. One other thing, Tim, is that we noted that there was a good portion of the Bronx that had the lights turned back on. This is not that section. This is in the far western section of the Bronx, where right near the southwest corner of Van Cortlandt Park, again, Broadway runs up the west side of the park. That's Van Cortlandt that you see on the right side of your screen. But again, fire department units now arriving from both the Bronx and Manhattan for this second alarm fire that is not yet under control, although as we just watched live, it looks like fire department members have made their way inside to quench that fire. But again, It appears as though the 911 system is up. That's what the mayor's been saying all night long. The response here was quick. We heard the first call come out, and the first fire department units were here within minutes, so that should be reassuring. But meanwhile, Tim, as you said, you certainly don't want to be careless with any kind of portable items that you're using tonight.
A lot of people that we had talked to earlier in the evening were working a lot of flashlights. That seemed to be the light source of choice.
But also a lot of candles. A lot of people walking around the streets were using candles on the streets, which surprised me. Right. I think it's also interesting to point out that we have been fortunate that we have not seen so many emergencies like this evening. I mean, everyone has had their hands full, and this is one of the few fires that we have seen throughout the evening.
And fortunately, too, because so few people are out on the roadways, the emergency crews can get there that much faster, even if they are having to come from different boroughs to do so. But
now, it looks like in that part of the Bronx, I'm not seeing much light. That, as we do know, there has been some power restored in some parts of the Bronx, Chelsea, Lower Manhattan, Queens, Brooklyn. Slowly but surely, we're getting the power back on. It looks like things are pretty dark in that area, though.
It still does, exactly. John, any other further activity? Does it look like they're executing more of a rescue there?
Well, from the air, it looks like they've gotten the flames knocked down. We haven't gotten the latest report, and again, getting information, much like for you guys, it's virtually impossible because the phone lines are tied up. We're watching the fire department work on top of that ladder. There's also a few firemen up on the roof. You can see those flashlights through the smoke. And again, just to recap for anyone that might be joining into these pictures, this is a 2-alarm fire which just broke out in the Bronx at West 246th Street and Broadway. Fire department units responded here from both Manhattan and the Bronx, which is unusual. You'd have to think that Manhattan unit was called in because of the power outage. We had some initial reports of injuries here at the scene, but nothing has been confirmed as of yet in this fire, not yet officially under control.
Okay, well, John, keep an eye on it for us, and we'll stay with it and kind of touch base with you in just a few moments. You know, we were talking earlier this evening, Sandra, you and I both had walked extensively in and around various neighborhoods and side streets and got a good sense of how people were dealing with this. And I think there is this feeling that there's a lot of caring and helping that's going on that doesn't normally go on. And not to say because people don't have a good heart, but rather we're all in this together.
I think a couple of people even said to me this evening, throughout the day actually, that in a post-9/11 world, they were not surprised to see people reaching out to each other and also taking this calmly. I mean, that was one of the concerns when this first happened right after 4. What's going on? Why is this happening? Is there a problem? Is it terrorism? Was it deliberate? And once some of those questions were answered, I think people started to calm down. They started to worry about how am I going to get home? How am I going to get my kids home? Am I going to go to work tomorrow? How am I going to walk up the stairs to work if I live on the 18th floor? And, in comparison to other things that they have been through, I think this was pretty calm, pretty routine. And as I said, they could deal with the heat and the dark for now. I don't think they want to see it 24 hours from now.
No, definitely not. And too, what was amazing were the long lines of walkers up the sidewalk. Any street you looked up, Broadway, 6th Avenue, from Times Square, there were just these incredibly long lines of people making their way up. And we've heard stories of people marching. Jim Dolan had a gentleman before. He had marched from Fulton Street in Brooklyn, and he was already up in the Bronx.
Yes.
And I talked to a guy who'd walked 40 blocks up from the Wall Street area. So people have made and are trying to deal with it the best they possibly can. This looks to be, is that the...
This is earlier videotape.
And that would be of the Brooklyn Bridge?
Traffic heading out, as we've heard, traffic has been horrendous for much of the day going out of the city, whether you were trying to get out of the bridges, the tunnels. It's been really bad. Earlier, the Holland Tunnel, there was one lane open in both directions. Lincoln Tunnel was closed inbound, 3 lanes open. You could expect a 2-hour delay is what we were hearing earlier this evening. Now, the GWB had been open both ways, but again, there was a whole lot of traffic, heavy traffic at the toll booths. Are the toll booths even working, I would think?
Well, John had mentioned that before, that in some some cases, it appears the tolls are working because the lights were on in the one plaza over near the Triborough, and yet in other cases, the tolls were just open. They weren't operational, so they just had to let the cars go through.
As a matter of fact, on New Jersey Turnpike, Garden State Parkway, and Atlantic City Expressway, they have suspended all tolls until further notice.
Right.
So
and too interesting that on the Brooklyn Bridge, where it was the pedestrian that overtook the traffic, and so they were able to make the most of that as well. Jim Dolan is up in Washington Heights. We have a couple of people up there. Let's go up to Jim and check in with him. Jim.
Jim, we're at High Bridge Park, and you know it's hot inside and it's cool outside, so a lot of smart people have come outside. We're having a little trouble fixing the stereo right now, but we're working on it. We're trying to get some music playing. It was playing a few minutes ago. This is the Martinez family came out here. They have sheets and pillowcases and pillows, and the youngest Martinez is trying to get some sleep right now, but you know what? We're not really letting him get any sleep. Excuse me, you guys. We're going to walk over here and take a walk around the park for just a second. Now, you saw the sheets and that kind of thing. People over here were a little smarter. They brought an air mattress, and they are crashed out on that. Now, right up here is the 33rd Precinct. If you can tilt up, TC, that's the 33rd Precinct, and you notice they have lights on there, and a lot of folks taking advantage of those lights. They have their own generator there. That's why they have the lights on, because right over there across Amsterdam Avenue, they are using those lights to play cards, to play dominoes, to play chess. They've got music blaring. They are dancing over there. That is the place to be tonight because they are enjoying this blackout about as much as anybody can. Of course, everybody is hoping that the lights come on, but they are turning it into a party at least as much as they can. Live from Washington Heights, Jim Dolan, ABC7. Eyewitness News.
Jim, a quick question. It is not as hot as it could be. I mean, is that, you think, one of the reasons people are taking this so easily?
Well, you know, here in the park, there's an absolutely beautiful breeze. It is a lovely night outside. We showed you the moon earlier. There are clear skies. There is a lovely breeze out here. You know, blackouts generally happen when it really is very hot, and so it gets hot. Gets uncomfortable out here very quickly. Now, somebody up 170th Street, I think that is over there, did open up a fire hydrant a little while ago, and the kids were playing in that. But no, it's not unpleasant, and it's very nice that people are enjoying it, yeah.
Do you get a sense, and I know you had alluded to it earlier, about the few calls that police were making out of the precinct tonight, although they were there and they were dispatched there. Do you see that, do you get a sense that there is a calmer nature that we're just not seeing, you know, what we perhaps suspected might happen?
Absolutely. It has been calm all evening. I want to show you again, this is the 33rd Precinct. Some friends over here, all enjoying this evening. We got no light. But the 33rd Precinct over there, there are some police officers standing outside there. They are waiting in case something happens, but they are reserved. They are standing by in case something happens, but so far nothing has. And that is what the police officers have been saying, is that what we are seeing here is what they are seeing throughout the precinct. People are calm, they are quiet, and they are going about their business. And there has been not a single store looted that we know of here in this precinct. There's been none of that. People just the opposite, being calm and hanging out together.
Having a nice camp out to boot.
Yeah, we are all enjoying it. And, we got the stereo kicking, so now we're all set.
That party atmosphere has permeated the city, I think. Earlier here the evening, Roz was invited to a couple of parties when she was out doing a story. I went to a couple of the parties, blackout parties they were calling them, up and down the Upper West Side, blackout picnics. There was a lot of beer, a lot of warm beer, which is not good. Nobody seemed to mind. Not a whole lot of ice. People just said they had to get out of their hot apartments, get downstairs. In one building, they even told me they hadn't really met many of their neighbors, but this was the first night. Now they sort of knew everybody's name, and they would continue to find out more about their neighbors. So they were, I guess, finding the good in the bad.
And it also gives you a good opportunity as well to check on two things I think are important. First, the elderly. If you have or know of an elderly person in your building, in your apartment complex or neighborhood that you might want to check in on, please do that, because again, the temperatures are going to rise in these buildings without air conditioning. The other thing are the pets. We saw a lot of people with their pets out tonight trying to cool them, calm them down somewhat, because they were clearly upset and disturbed by the unusual nature of their surroundings. And some probably were in the house a little bit longer today because it took the owners longer to get back home again. So, again, those are two I think, important things.
Saw plenty of people walking their dogs by flashlight this evening, which was quite interesting. Even over in Central Park, I saw people walking their dogs with flashlights. We should also point out to folks that in preparation for the power coming back on, I think we've said it several times throughout the evening, you need to turn off as many of your appliances as you can. You don't want that big rush of power, that big power surge. So turn off as much as you can so that in preparation for the power coming back on.
Okay, now John Del Giorno is in Newscopter 7 for us. He has been following a fire up in West 246th Street in the Bronx that looks to be expanding somewhat. John?
Well, what happened was we shifted our angle here, Tim, so now you've got the lights from the fire trucks lighting up all the smokes. We are virtually right on top of this fire. The latest report that we got from the fire department is that this fire has been pretty much knocked down. They are calling for a few additional trucks to respond. This fire broke out only about 10 minutes ago here at West 246th Street and Broadway in the Bronx. Fire department units from both the Bronx and Manhattan responded here to the scene, and they responded rather quickly. We've been talking about how the roads are not congested at this hour, especially due to the blackout. People seem to be staying inside. And what also assisted the fire department in getting here is that there are a lot of police officers out at the intersection so that they closed the streets so the fire department could get here very quickly. But the latest word, this was a fire in a 6-story building. Fire broke out on both the 4th and 5th floors. This is an apartment building, and we are told that this building was occupied at the time the fire broke out. There are initial reports that there were some injuries down there. We see EMS in the center of your screen. They are standing by, but through the smoke, it's very difficult for us right now to tell whether or not anybody has actually been treated. But the latest here, the fire not yet under control. Fire department is reporting that most of the flame, though, has been knocked down. They are requesting one additional engine to respond here for additional assistance.
All right, Sean, thank you. Keep us posted on that. Again, all of it started this afternoon, 4:06. The lights went out. They have not come back on for most of us. Sarah Wallace takes a look at what the day has been like.
The lights started blinking, and then the lights went out. I'm shaking. You didn't know what it was.
What it was, shortly after 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, a massive outage in the Niagara-Mohawk grid, which provides power for millions of people in 5 states and northeastern Canada.
For some reason or other, there was a power failure in northern New York or southern Canada. That cascaded down through the system and affected the power grid as far east as Connecticut, as far south as New Jersey, and as far west as Ohio.
In New York State alone, 19 million people lost power. 600 trains throughout the subway system and the Long Island Railroad network stopped dead in their tracks, some inside tunnels. As the swelter spread, many riders slid to safety through windows. Evacuations below ground and high above it. In some cases, it took hours to get people out of stuck high-rise elevators.
I had to take a candle, make my way down the stairs. Everything's out. Electricity, obviously, lighting.
New York City office workers poured out onto city streets for what would be a very long walk home, well into the night.
I took the Brooklyn Bridge all the way. There was no bus, nothing. Everything was just, it was terrible. I walked from Brooklyn.
With signal lights suddenly blank in the busiest time of the day, traffic snarled into a gridlock worse than any Christmas holiday. Self-appointed directors took matters into their own hands. And what a sight as commuters turned many of the busiest drives and bridges into walkways. The New York Waterway Terminal looked like a massive pedestrian mall.
Since Wall Street, man, look at my boots. They are like, the soul is gone. Since Wall Street.
The governor quickly declared a state of emergency with a promise to figure out what went wrong with the grid and why this was deja vu 38 years after the Great Northeast Blackout of 1965.
Well, we don't know what the cause was, but it clearly shows that the grid system didn't work the way it's supposed to. We had this Northeast outage back, I guess, in the 60s, and it wasn't supposed to happen again. It has happened again.
President Bush offered his total support.
In my judgment, the governors and mayors of the affected states and cities have responded very well. We've offered all the help they need.
For a time, the FAA stopped flights in and out of the New York area because of problems with security screening. The 911 system continued to work, and most hospitals in the area moved to backup generators. Several hours after the blackout began, some good news.
Power continues to come on in different sections of the city. There are parts of Brooklyn and parts of Queens that are already back, bigger parts of the Bronx.
Throughout the night, more and more flickers back on. But even in those areas still in the dark, the mood was light.
It's fun. It's these citizens in the street directing traffic. I mean, they're just taking control, taking action, and that's what makes New York great.
That was Sarah Wallace reporting on the situation that New Yorkers and quite a few other people around the East have endured today.
Sarah mentioned in her story about the travails of the subway riders, and I had talked to a young couple this evening, and they were telling me that they had waited 2 hours on the A train, and they were on the express line, so they were well between two stops, and as a result they finally had 3 workers come up and help them get out of the train. But it just goes to show you that for a lot of commuters it became a real trial for a while. NJ Burkett is standing by live here on the Upper West Side with more on some of those subway problems. And NJ, I would assume the hope that they'd like to get that system back up and running.
Well, they'd like to do it as soon as possible, Tim, but it is easier said than done. Of course, the entire New York City transit system runs on electricity, so when the electricity went out, every subway everywhere in New York City came to a screeching, grinding halt. Some of them in the subway stations, but others, many others, got stuck in the tunnels. No air conditioning, no lights, and only one way out.
You finally made it. The first passengers emerged from the tunnels covered in grime and gasping for fresh air, while 2 stories underground, hundreds of others inched their way along the walls, staggering blindly through the tunnels in total darkness, tiptoeing past rats, roaches, and stagnant water, stepping gently across the 3rd rail.
The line of passengers stretches for more than 200 yards through the subway tunnel, and here is where the train came to a grinding, screeching halt. Passengers, as you can see, suffering from heat exhaustion and sheer panic.
Passengers streamed from the train, relying on pen lights and lighters, even the light from our TV camera. For more than an hour, there were just 2 transit workers to help them.
We were coming past West 4th Street, and the power just went out, and everybody got stuck.
Just stopped all of a sudden. It was this big halting stop. Everyone was thrown.
Phelan Pena was headed home from Midtown.
We were on the train. We got stuck. I couldn't breathe. Everybody just panicked. So it was just a really terrible experience for me. I never want to go through nothing like this again. I'm all shaken up. I just want to get home and hug my family and just. We didn't know what was going on. We thought maybe it was a terrorist attack. We just didn't know. We just wanted to get home, and I'm out and I want to go home.
There's no telling how many trains were stranded in the tunnels today, but suffering strap hangers numbered in the thousands. This was the scene on the A train in Soho. Hey, listen, is there anybody passed out on that train? Some were pregnant, some were asthmatic, others were elderly. Riders in the back of the train sweltered for up to 2 hours before they reached the street.
There's definitely some people, a couple cars behind, by the time they got onto the tracks, were like hyperventilating and having some panic attacks. One guy, his friends had to sit him down here because he was shaking so bad and he was really freaking out.
It was just the not knowing, if we'd been told it would be 2 hours and the fire department on their way, it'd be fine, but it just got hotter and hotter and I didn't know what was happening.
And down in the tunnels, people were asking us over and over again what happened because, of course, they were in the tunnels for so long, they had no idea. You should know that people were relieved to know that it was only a blackout. Live on the Upper West Side, NJ Burkett, ABC7, Eyewitness News.
Now, NJ, my understanding is that even once we get power back, that getting the trains up and running is going to be a rather slow process. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, Sandra, it's going to be extremely difficult because keep in mind, as I mentioned a short time ago, the subways came to a halt sometimes in the tunnels. And what they've got to do is they've got to get the train crews out to the tunnels, they've got to get in the subways themselves, and they've got to get them moving to points where they can actually, begin the process of getting the whole system back on track. It takes an awful lot. It's not like they can simply flip a switch and restore the system, immediately. It doesn't happen that way. It's almost like the air traffic control system that, when you shut it down, it takes an awful long time just to get it cranked up to speed. This will not be an easy process.
And they were also saying before, too, is that they have to have full power before they can go. So it can't be just a partial power restore and expect this system to be running. They have to have it up completely, right?
That's right, Tim. It takes a lot of juice to run the New York City transit system. So they're not going to switch those trains on until they're absolutely sure that the grid will not fail again. They can't afford for that kind of thing to happen again. So they're being extremely careful about when it is they bring all of this stuff online. And you're absolutely right. You can't run the system on half power. You can't say, well, we're going to run a few more trains, and not quite as many as they usually run during rush hour. So they're not going to be doing that. They're going to wait till the entire system is in place and ready to go before they flip that switch. And the most important thing that I would emphasize to you right now is that they do have to get these trains out of the tunnels where they became stalled, where they actually stopped. That's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take several hours.
Oh, especially if they have quite a few of them there. That's for sure.
It may be a good time to mention also, you mentioned the air traffic control system. Airports, as you might expect, are going to be a mess. Now, LaGuardia, Newark, and JFK, in fact, have canceled all takeoffs. What they say is the passenger screening machines are down. Obviously, no power, so no planes are being allowed to leave. The planes that were in flight are being allowed to land. So if you are intending to fly out of either of the big airports tomorrow, you need to call ahead because there will likely be an awful lot of delays as the system tries to get itself up and running and operating efficiently again.
It's going to be difficult probably throughout the weekend before it finally works itself through the system, if they get it back up and running again. Governor Pataki, he has been following the situation, clearly because here in New York State, I believe 19 million people have been affected by no electricity whatsoever. So he has been following this, and this is some comments that he had earlier this evening in regards to the blackout.
One of the two questions on everybody's mind: why did this happen? How did it happen? And how, after there were assurances after the blackouts in the 60s, it happened again on an even larger scale. And I am asking that question. New Yorkers are, and I'm confident we're going to work until we get the answers to it.
All right, all things considered, I'm assuming you're getting essentially the same information that we are. There have not been any major disasters anywhere, have there?
No, in fact, we're really proud of how New Yorkers have responded. I just heard Michelle's comments about politicians giving people credit, but in New York they certainly deserve that credit. We had almost 600 commuter and subway trains that were stranded when the power went out. Everybody was evacuated without one serious injury. We've declared a state of emergency, activated state police units and National Guard special units, and asked any community if they need help, and there hasn't been one request for that type of assistance. New Yorkers are doing what they always do, responding with courage and with calm in the face of this crisis, helping each other out, and we're just very pleased with the response of the people. We're obviously extremely dissatisfied that this systemic failure across the Northeast could occur. That shouldn't happen, and we have to get answers as to why and how this is going to be prevented from happening again.
All right, very quickly, some of the lights are coming back on again. How long do you think before the system is a full go again?
Well, that's the other question everybody's asking, and we can't give an answer to that. The part of the system that did work well was there was an orderly tripping shutdown of the plants, and our repowering is proceeding in an orderly fashion. Most of upstate is back with some areas 100%, most 40 or 50%. But in the metropolitan area, it is still only 3-4% of the customers have power, and everybody will be working all night long, working to get this back on, and we're hopeful that over the course of the evening we'll see significant power additions, but I just don't want to predict the time frame at this point.
And that was Governor George Pataki commenting. He mentioned and alluded to just a few moments ago about working throughout the night and trying to restore power. We do have some good news to report to you, which is always important at this hour, that LIPA, the Long Island Power Authority, has now restored power to 300,000 of its 1.2 million customers. So there are 300,000 happier people on Long Island at roughly 1:33 in the morning.
Slow but steady progress.
Very much so. Another thing we should mention too, and you had mentioned it earlier in saying that make sure that you have the air conditioners turned off and you have perhaps the computers even turned off. They're big power drainers, and so when you get the electricity back, you certainly don't want to start putting a strain on it right away. So again, turn some of those things off so you don't have any problems with them, with power surges and things of that nature. I'm no electrician, but I know I've blown enough in the past to know those things. So.
All right. Now, Nina Pineda has been in Washington Heights throughout much of the evening. We've talked a lot about how there's not been a whole lot of problems around the city, not much of the looting that we had seen during blackouts of years past. And in this neighborhood where Nina is, apparently there are some folks patrolling the neighborhood trying to make sure that there aren't any problems. Nina?
Sandra, that's right. A lot of people took it upon themselves because they know that the police department is really taxed right now trying to patrol. We do see a lot of police officers out. They've been in vans, they've been in unmarked cars, and they've been walking around on foot. But what we have seen a lot of people walking around with little lights of their own. Somebody got smart and wise and decided to sell some of these. And these folks, Carlos and Cesar, were on their bikes. They've been all the way up to 190th Street, they say, and back down to 160th, over to the park and up to Broadway. They report everything is calm. People are sitting out in front of their bodegas and stores and kind of trying to take it upon themselves and their neighborhood and their community to guard their bodegas and take care of their families and make sure that no one is up to any crime and vandalism. We're going to swing around here and show you how the van is being utilized. We still have some people, as you can see, catching a charge since we're the only source of power here in the neighborhood from our generator, let their families know they're okay. But you've been on the phone for quite a long time. How much longer can you stay on that phone?
30 minutes.
30 minutes? 30 more minutes. Maybe you should actually just go home instead of calling them. Well, he's trying to check in with his family, and earlier we met a family of our own that had to come for some emergency health issues. They have an infant going to be a year old, and she needs to breathe from an asthma nebulizer every 4 hours. So we met her and her mom, and hopefully we can take a look at that piece right now.
You have to plug it in.
Her baby needs power to breathe. The nebulizer that gives Chanel her asthma medication has to be plugged in for her every 4 hours. Desperate, Rosa Rodriguez took to the streets looking for generator power. She found it in our Eyewitness News truck, a relief for the wheezing baby and her scared mom.
When she doesn't get a treatment, 9 out of 10, her oxygen level will drop. And if it drops anything within, dangerous range, how am I supposed to know? How do I call EMS? How do they get her from point A to point B? I've been sitting here for over 2.5 hours.
Moments after our interview, Rosa got an update from City Councilman Pablo Santos Jr. on foot patrol throughout his district to get the word out on where people with health concerns should go. The blackout, a reminder of how hard it is to disseminate essential information in an emergency.
It's difficult to get the word out. They have no transmission. We called the radio, but a lot of people don't have electricity, so they can't hear the radio. We're trying to get the word out through one of our mobile sound systems, but it's really difficult to get the word out. And it's scary.
Candles will light the way in the Heights tonight. Throughout the day, people did what they could to keep cool. Some shopkeepers locked down early. Other merchants gave away food that would just go to waste. And some took advantage of the blackout to make a buck.
I bought the flashlight for $10 and $2 for the batteries.
And finally, in the pitch dark, some walkers finally made it home, trekking 177 blocks, hitching rides, taking the bus, but mostly walking.
We walked about 70 blocks at least, and we've taken about 3 or 4 buses.
And you walked about 40 blocks?
40 blocks?
At least 40 blocks.
I think 70 blocks.
You think so? Okay, you're right.
Well, I guess when it got past 40, you can stop counting. A lot of people did wind up walking all the way back to Washington Heights from their jobs as far downtown as Wall Street because there was just no other way to do it. If you wanted to get home, you started walking, and 5 hours later, you were here. A lot of the stores have been shut down since about 4 or 5 o'clock. There hasn't been any place to buy any food. I'm going to get some right now, though. Thank you, Ruth. This is Ruth. This is Ruth Rodriguez. How is the baby now?
She's right there in the crib.
Oh, she's in the crib sleeping. They've got their crib out here. They brought the food out. It's much too hot. The apartments are hot.
Yes.
Yeah, very hot. So, we are enjoying a nice breeze up here in Washington Heights right now. So, some people just stick it out while they can. Back to you in the studio, Sandra, Tim.
You know, Nina, we're hearing you crack the whip. I want to know, is that guy still on the phone?
Well, you know, he was using the phone about an hour ago, and he's still there. I think that it might take a long time to recharge, but he lives nearby. He keeps saying that he's calling his family to let him know he's okay. That's why I said, why don't you just walk across the block and actually go home? I think he just likes hanging out because there's a lot of excitement in the neighborhood. As you can see, Sandra, you were showing people earlier how some people are just having fun with it. But you did mention as it gets into the wee hours of the morning, people are going to tire of this game that we're playing and really want to actually get comfortable and get cool. So we'll see how much longer it remains festive here.
Plus, I would imagine, too, Nina, they're going to have to go to work tomorrow. And no matter, whether the commute is going to be rough or not, they still have to get to work.
And for us, it's already tomorrow, right?
Well,
Isn't
that's
it?
true, too. But that's neither here nor there. I'm glad you updated us on Rose's baby because I was going to ask you. I'm glad she's doing much better.
Yeah, and you know what? She has to, about 3 hours ago, she got her last treatment, or 2 hours ago. So in 2 hours, the baby will again go to the van and start breathing in the mist, the asthma mist that she takes that she doesn't wheeze so much.
We're going to get you a first aid patch.
Yeah, I need one.
Thank you so much, Nina.
Okay.
So we do have some information.
We do. We have some new information to update you as far as the morning rush goes. And again, there was the hope that perhaps the system would be back and up and running, but as they tell us now, New York Transit, no subway service for the morning rush. Extra bus services will be running, but there will be delays. And also New Jersey Transit Saturday schedules for the morning rush. The Montclair, the Boonton line will be running up to 2 trains per hour between Hoboken.
And as far as PATH services concerned, PATH trains, very, very limited service, trains running every 30 minutes. Metro North, we are being told there will be no service for morning rush, and the LIRR, no service for morning rush. Limited bus service will be provided. 35 trains were stranded throughout the Long Island Railroad network when Third Rail and Signal Power were lost, of course, including 2 trains that have been stuck in the tunnels. I got a feeling there are going to be a lot of people taking a long weekend.
Oh, sure. I don't think they're even going to even bother getting into a car or even try to carpooling it in tomorrow. And that they're just going to say, let's make it a 3-day weekend because I don't want to be stuck someplace for the weekend.
Exactly.
Other than my home.
I think Jack said the power's starting to return. Yeah, what we're hearing, Staten Island.
There are parts of it that are being restored with power. So they're, again, good news. It continues to trickle in, and we were told that that's the way it was going to be, that it was going to move in different waves and portions, that it wasn't all just going to all of a sudden pop up and the lights are back on.
So hopefully if you be patient, sooner or later, the power will get to your house.
Yes, it will.
We're keeping our fingers crossed.
John Del Giorno, he is in Newscopter Summer. No? Okay, we understand he's not available to us just yet. I was looking at something else here a moment ago. They've also restored some power in Westchester and southeastern Bronx. We've been telling you that for the last couple of hours because that occurred even about 10 o'clock. We also have on the phone with us right now is Richard Kessel, who is the head of LIPA. Richie, I've known for a number of years. Richard, Tim Fleischer here.
Hey, Tim, how you doing?
I'm fine, sir, and yourself?
Good.
Do you have electricity?
Well, we do here at the emergency center. We're moving right. We've got about 40% of our customers back. About close to about 400,000 Long Islanders are now back, and we're working and got about 2,000 people out there working, and we're hoping to have most of the people back up and running by the morning.
One of the critical things that we've been talking about earlier, Richard, is that this isn't something that you're going to be able to push in and do all at once. That is there a number of checks and things you have to make sure are safe before this comes back up?
Oh, absolutely. What we've got to do is, as we bring the generation back, we've got to synchronize it with the load out there, because if there's an imbalance, that could create blackouts cascading in the other direction. connection. So, we've got to be very careful in terms of synchronizing the generation as it comes back with the load that's out there. And the other thing we've actually done is we've actually, up until about an hour or so ago, we've been operating Long Island as two separate grids. We've now connected those two grids so that as the generation and the power plants come back, we can begin, sending electricity across Long Island. Up until an hour ago, we were only able to send it a short distance. So, the job now overnight is to, get all the generation up and running and to synchronize it into the grid. And we've got to do it very carefully and slowly. But again, we're making a lot of progress now, and hopefully we'll have the bulk of our customers back by the morning.
Now, you say there's about 400,000 customers that are back on. When you bring people back online, are these they just scattered all over, or are they coming back on in sections, in neighborhoods, in towns?
Well, obviously it's all across Long Island. The bulk of the customers that are back are actually in eastern Suffolk County, more on the North Shore than the South Shore. But we're beginning to see some significant numbers coming back in Nassau County as well. So, it's spread along the entire backbone of the transmission system on the island. But I'm looking at a map right now which shows large areas that are coming back pretty solidly. And again, now that we've tied the west with the east on Long Island, it's going to be easier to bring other people back very quickly.
Is there anything that you at this point want to tell people if they are in earshot of us here, and we realize some people don't have power so they can't hear us, but when it comes to getting that restored power, what should they be doing?
Well, I think the two things that we want to be able to communicate is, number one, if your power is not back yet, to please turn off all of your appliances, your air conditioners, televisions, computers, so that there's not a surge when the power does come back. The other thing which is going to be very important is, obviously today, Friday, is going to be a very challenging day. It's going to be hot. Some of the equipment is down on Long Island. Not a lot of it, but we're not going to have all of the generation that we would normally have, and right now we're not anticipating being able to import any electricity. And I think this is true for many areas of the state. I'm sure that a number of generating facilities have been damaged, and we're not going to have the same supply that we would have. And so people are going to have to really pitch in all across Long Island, New York City, and the entire state, and conserve electricity. And I think that's going to be crucial. And I've talked to Governor Pataki, and we're working with the governor to try to launch some very significant energy conservation programs. But if the people can understand that Friday, if they can get to the beach or the parks, not run their air conditioners, don't do the laundry or the wash, don't do any cooking during the day, that's going to help us keep the power on throughout Friday.
One quick question for you, one last quick question for you, and you may be uncomfortable doing this. Are you able to predict when you might have the majority of your customers back online?
Yeah, I think we'll have, unless something, happens, I think we'll have the majority of our customers back by, dawn, probably 6, 7 a.m. in the morning. I mean, as I said, we've got about 40% back now, so we're hoping to have a significant chunk added to that, and hopefully by, 6, 7 in the morning, we should have a majority of our customers back.
I think there are a lot of people that have heard that. We heard it. We're excited. I don't really live in the life of power.
Well, come out here.
But it's nice to hear a prediction. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks, guys. Have a good evening.
You too, Richard. Thank you.
Bye.
We should also kind of bring you up to date. We have been telling you that there have been reports of low crime tonight, and that police have not had much of a problem. There have been isolated incidents. A sneaker store was burglarized on Flatbush Avenue. 20 people were arrested there. Also in Brooklyn, 5 people arrested for burglarizing a rent-a-center on Gates Avenue, and then 5 people were arrested for burglary of a cellular phone store at Nostrand and Housley, and 2 men were arrested for attempted burglary of a jewelry store in Queens. So again, there were incidents tonight that have kept police busy, and people taking advantage, I suppose, of the situation of no lights and perhaps